Hello folks, this is Jeff Phillips with SmokingMeat.com, and today we're going to be talking about pork butt. I just got back from my local grocery store with an 8-pound boneless pork butt, and I'm going to be showing you today how to butterfly this thing. We'll actually be laying this open. It'll look sort of like a rack of ribs when we get done with it. That creates more bark, helps it to cook a little faster, and also opens up some other options for us to, say, stuff it and roll it up, tie it, cook it that way. I'm excited about this video today. Let's get right into it. So as you can see, I have this thing sitting on my pan here. You can get this on Amazon. I will place the links to these pans and racks down below in the description. If you'll notice, I'm lifting up this area where the bone was removed, and it has already got a good start toward being butterflied. So it's just being held on by the meat on that side. And of course, if I just continue cutting back here, back to about right in here, we're going to be able to lay this thing open just like a rack of ribs. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm just going to start cutting right here. Now one thing you'll notice, let me turn this around so you can see it. It's a little thicker here than it is up here. So I'm going to try to angle, I'm going to try to make my cut down at an angle like this so I end up with a more even piece all the way across. Now I'm just using a boning knife, and you don't have to really cut real quick with a boning knife. You can just kind of make cuts and see where you are and go from there. See how that's just opening up? No. Sometimes it helps to look at the other side, and I'll flip this around so you can see it. See how I'm coming over here? I'm going to try to angle back. I'm going to try to end up about right there. I don't want to cut all the way through it, but I want to cut far enough where it will open up and lay flat. So let me turn that back around. I'm going to make a few more cuts here, and just keep pulling it out as you cut, and kind of be able to tell when you're to where you need to be. But that looks pretty good right there. Make a little cut right there. And that's laid open really nice. See how easy that was? It's going to cook faster. And also, we're going to, all this inside meat here is going to be bark, as well as on the back side. So what I'm going to do now is flip that over. And as you can see, we've got our fat cap here. So I'm gonna remove this fat cap. So just try to get your knife. I'm trying to do this so you guys have the right angle and can see. I just kind of try to get my knife under the fat, and if you get into the meat a little bit, it's not too big of a deal. Just take your time. If you did this all the time, you'd probably be really quick. I don't do this all the time. Occasionally I'll remove some fat or do some trimming, but I am not a butcher, and I don't claim to be. And one thing you might, if you decide you don't want to do some of these things like removing the fat cap, you can always ask your butcher to do that for you, and 9 times out of 10 they will do that. They're happy to do that for you. I'll go ahead and finish removing this fat off camera, and I'll come back and show you how it looks when I'm finished. As far as I'm concerned, we are ready to season this up now and start thinking about getting this thing on the smoker. When I put that rub on the meat, I don't want to lose any. When I flip it over, or when I'm moving it to the smoker, I don't want to lose any. It's a real simple process. You just kind of, you don't have to use a ton, but enough to where you can do a good layer. And we're obviously going to do this on both sides. I'm just going to use a basting brush to spread this mustard out. But you can do this with your bare hands if you want to do that. The next step is my Jeff's original rub. This has a lot of brown sugar in it, proportioned perfectly to create a good bark on things like ribs and pork shoulder. I'm going to open the sides. It's got 3 pretty good sized holes on it. Now be generous with this stuff. Don't be chintzy. This is your bark, and that is so important on things like pork butt. One thing I love about this rub is that it is very low in sodium, so you can use a lot to get that really good bark that you're wanting on something like this without worrying about it being overly salty. And we're just going to leave this sitting here, and I'll come back and show it to you. But here in just a few minutes, the little tiny bit of salt that's in this rub will begin to pull some of the juices out of that mustard and out of the meat, and it'll start mixing with that rub, and it'll start getting this wet look. And that's how you know it's going to stick. It's not going to fall off when I get ready to flip this thing over. We'll come back here in just a second and flip this thing over and do the other side exactly the same way. That is looking really good. The rub has just become such a part of that meat at this point, and that's what we're really looking for. I'm ready to flip this meat over. We're going to do the mustard and the rub on the other side just like it, and then we're going to place this thing in the fridge and let it just get really happy overnight. I'll spread that out a little bit. I'm adding Jeff's original rub right onto the top of this. So I'm going to go place this in the fridge. I'll see you in a bit. I just came out here and started up the Camp Chef Wi-Fi. This is the 24-inch. I've got this thing set up now. It is on low smoke, which normally will maintain around 180 degrees, maybe a little less than that. Once we get the food in there, we will turn it up to high smoke, which will maintain about 220 degrees. Let's check out our pellet situation. I'll probably come out and add some pellets here in a little bit, but I can do that after I get the meat in. Most pellet smokers running at an average temperature of 225 degrees will typically use about a pound of pellets per hour. Got some good smoke coming out of that. Let me go ahead and close this lid. So that smoker is ready. Let's go inside and get our butterflied pork butt and bring it out and get it on the grates. We just pulled this pork butt out of the fridge. It's looking good. We're getting ready to put this thing on the smoker. We've got the smoker all fired up and ready to go. And you can see how that rub just really got that dark, wet look, and it's really done a good job of creating a paste that's going to, in turn, create a lot of nice bark. I'm going to leave this pork butt on that pan while it cooks today, so that will help keep down the mess on the smoker. It'll also make it real easy to transport it to the smoker and then back from the smoker when it's finished. Let's get this thing out to the smoker. Let's go ahead and just get this meat on the smoker. See how that smoke? That's going to really do a great job of flavoring that pork butt. I'm using a competition blend by Pit Boss. Let's get this lid closed, and we'll come back and check on this thing in a few hours and see how it's looking. The meat has been cooking for around 6.5 hours. I want to get a look at it here. Let's open the lid. Looks really good. Some of the fat is starting to render on the inside. I'm guessing we got a few more hours before that actually gets to where we need it to be. But let's go ahead and put some of our mop on the meat, and moisturize the top of that and make it look really nice, make it just add another layer of flavor. I've got my mop that we made here. I've got my basting brush. Just gonna be kind of liberal with that. It's been 11 hours and I want to check the pork butt and see what temperature it's gotten to. Normally we'd let this get to about 207 if we were going to pull it, but I'm wanting to do a little slicing on this, so around 180 to 190 is going to be a little better. We're going to take this in the house, slice it up, taste it, and we'll see how that goes. We just brought the meat into the house and it's looking really good. I'll let it sit here and rest for a few minutes, and what that does is it eliminates a lot of the juice coming out when we slice into it. It lets those juices settle down a little bit. I'm just making sure this is separated from this pan. It's still pretty hot. See if I can slide this over to our board without it falling apart. I've got my big slicing knife here. I want to slice into this and get a look at it, and then we'll taste it and see how that goes. Just gonna slice right down to the middle of it here. I'll turn it around here where you guys can see it. Wow, man, that is so hot, but I want you to look at that. That is beautiful and so tender. I'm just going to go ahead and slice a few of these, about a 1/4 inch thick or so. Look at that. Slicing like butter. Some of the pieces on the end are falling apart. Gotta do something with it. Man, the amount of bark on this thing is just incredible. There's bark on the bottom, there's bark on the top, bark on the sides. You just can't beat that. Now we've sliced this up just a little bit. I want to get a piece over here. Get some little bite-sized pieces so we can taste it. Here goes. Wow. That is so good. See how juicy that is? Wow. That is crazy good. Wow. Unbelievable. That's so good. I gotta have one more piece. You guys have got to try this at home. It's unbelievable. I'm gonna eat one more piece just to make you guys wish you had some. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today as I cooked up this butterflied pork butt on the Camp Chef Wi-Fi pellet smoker. I've had a lot of fun doing this. It took about 11 hours. We maintained about 225 degrees, and we ended up with a piece of meat here that's just got so much bark on it, so much flavor. It's so juicy, so tasty. You've got to try this at home. So be sure and do that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure and do that. Once again, this is Jeff Phillips of SmokingMeat.com, and I will see you in the next video.